and welcome to the Fertility Conversations podcast. The goal of this podcast is to create more awareness about infertility and to provide support to people trying to conceive. Thank you for listening today, and we hope you will be encouraged. And now, here is your host, Ola.
Welcome, everyone. So today I'm joined by Rima of @patience.is.a.virtue.ivf. She'll be sharing her infertility journey with us today, and her details would also be in the show notes. So welcome, Rima, and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I know my IVF handle is a tongue twister, so you did a great job.
I love it. But I'm going to make sure I say the dot in the right places and not skip.
Recently, I'm like, maybe I should change it to something different, but I think
it's good.
A message that I'm looking for, right?
Looking to convey. Yeah, because patience is definitely needed, in this whole journey. So
absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. So to start off, we always say, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no problem. So I am 36, born and raised in London, Ontario, Canada. My parents are of Lebanese descent. My dad immigrated to Canada in the 1950s, and my mom, they met at early, very, very early, probably 1979, 1980, got married, then had me and my two older brothers back to back, essentially. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, and then waited 9 years and had my youngest brother. And then I am a high school French teacher. Yeah. So I've been teaching for almost 14 years now. Wow, yeah. So that's pretty much my professional career. I've been married for just over 2.5 years. And yeah, that's about it. I'm kind of a boring person, Ola. My passions are my family and my friends and teaching. And now, to be honest, I've found a deep passion about infertility and supporting women in the community and women that are facing the same struggles as me.
Yeah. And you're doing an amazing job. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. And same to you. I mean, it's women like you that help inspire me and elevate my voice and amplify my voice and just give me that platform to be able to do so. So thank you.
You're too sweet. Thanks. So how did you and your spouse meet?
Oh, we have a long story. I told you at the beginning, I'm 36. We met when we were 18. Wow. So it's been literally half of my life. The story is funny, and I only admitted it to him probably in the last 5 years, but I don't know if you remember MSN Messenger.
I do.
Platform. So this was before social media and, Instagram and even stuff like smartphones, way before any of that stuff. And so we had people used to communicate via MSN. And it was, I don't remember. It was let's say a Saturday night. I was home. I was bored. And I remember I had got a forward from someone. I don't know if you remember, people used to always send forwards, like jokes and this and that. And then you could see everybody, the email addresses that were included in the forward. And I said, you know what? I want to make I'm going to add some new people to my MSN list. And I just added a bunch of, probably about 10 email addresses. And he ended up being one of the email addresses. I didn't know him. And then he popped up onto MSN and we started chatting. And I was like, this guy's cool. But we were mostly friends for the majority of, I'd say the 18 years. We were really good friends, close friends. But then we decided to take it to the next level a few years ago.
Wow. Now here you are.
Yeah. So, and I think because we were so close and we've been best friends for such a long time that, our marriage, a lot of it becomes easy to us. Right. We had been, we knew each other inside and out. So that's our story.
Thank you, MSN Messenger. Wow.
Yeah, MSN Messenger. Just a Saturday night, bored at home, bunch of email addresses, and he's the one that eventually captured my heart.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you.
And of course, today we're speaking about fertility and infertility, and you're currently on your journey to parenthood. Um, so, can you tell us about your journey so far?
Yeah. So because we got engaged in our 30s
Mm.
and we knew we were ready to have children right away, and it was just a discussion we had that we were intending on having a quote unquote honeymoon baby.
Mm. Yeah.
That it would just, because I think I was 33, 2 months of shy of 34 when we got married. So we knew, like, my husband comes from a family of 8 children. So he's got a large family, and I have a family of this 4 children. And we knew we wanted to have, like, ideally in my mind, 3 children. So we said, okay, well, if I'm 34, we got to get started right away. So that was the plan. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. I didn't, like, I guess shortly after our honeymoon, probably about 2 or 3 months, I was like, although it was so early at that point, and I know most people would be like, well, it was 2 or 3 months, like, don't worry about it. Something in my gut told me something wasn't right. So I asked my family doctor to refer me to a fertility specialist. I had been reading online that once you're 35, your fertility, and the other thing was saying that, well, if you're 35 or older, if you've been trying for 6 months, then you're usually referred to a fertility specialist. I was 34 at that point. My doctor knew I wanted to have a lot of kids, and I basically at that point I said, please, can you just refer me to someone? And he did. So I went to a fertility specialist. They ran all the tests. Everything looked good. I did have low AMH. But he said that doesn't impact your ability to conceive. It really only impacts, if you're proceeding with IVF, how many eggs you can expect from a retrieval. He even shared with me that he's had patients who have come to be egg donors for family and friends, and these egg donors already had 2 or 3 children. They were young, but once they ran their test, they saw that they had low AMH and they wouldn't be good egg donors as a result. And it was shocking because they conceived easily and they had already had at least 2 or 3 kids. So he reassured me in that sense that, don't be worried about your AMH. If we get to IVF down the road, then we'll deal with it then. So at that point I said, okay, let's just try naturally for a little while more. So my husband and I kept trying naturally. Nothing came of it. And then in October of 2019, we decided to proceed with IUIs. So we did 2 IUIs back to back, and nothing came of those. And then we had decided that we would move on to IVF in the new year, so January of 2020. So we went on vacation in December for Christmas, and we went over to the States. We got back, and then I had contacted my clinic to let them know, okay, we've decided we want to proceed with IVF. Let's get the ball rolling. But unfortunately, I guess there was like water damage, or there was roof damage over the fertility wing at that part of the hospital. So we were told that that wasn't going to be a possibility, and that they were doing the emergency roof repairs, and it's going to be at least 2 months until they can reopen the fertility clinic, which was devastating. Like, even for them, like Katie, the receptionist, was just saying to me, she's like, Rima, this is like devastating for us and our patients. And so I was frustrated, and I wasn't upset with them. I was just frustrated with the situation. And she said, we've had to let people go because of this. We can't give them work during the roof repairs. So anyhow, she said, by March, everything should be up and running. So I said, okay, Rima, just be patient. Try another couple of months naturally. I was supposed to have orientation on March 15 and then start later that cycle. And then Canada shut down on March, I think it was 13.
Oof.
And I mean, there you go, right? COVID struck and it shut down the hospital, like the fertility wing again. So we weren't able to proceed. By June, I started contacting the clinic again. They said hopefully by June 1st, they'd be able to open up again. So it was May I was contacting them. June 1st, they did open up again. And then we scheduled my orientation. Long story short, I got in mid-August for our first retrieval. And yeah, we started doing the doing stims and doing the injections. And I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest. I only made my Instagram account probably like 3 days into injections, into stims. So I hadn't been following really anyone to know what to expect. I did have a very close friend that had gone through it, and she was kind of walking me through it. But I don't know. I find that once I made this account, I was able to really see firsthand how it impacts the women in our community. And to actually see the injections being done, and to see like the egg counts and embryos and blastocysts and A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we did that. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of eggs. But at the end of the retrieval, they managed to retrieve 5 follicles, but 3 of them were empty. So I just had the 2 eggs. And then both did fertilize, thankfully.
Great.
And yeah, they did fertilize. We got the call on day 2, said that they were both great, like they were doing great. And my doctor recommended we do a fresh 3-day transfer. So that was on a Sunday. So Sunday morning, I went to the hospital, of course, alone, because no one was allowed really here. And we did the transfer. It was beautiful. They said it was a grade 1, grade A, beautiful 8-cell embryo, very promising. My doctor was excited. But the baby didn't implant, the embryo didn't implant, unfortunately. So yeah, 2 weeks later we found out. And the sad thing is, because I had that other embryo, I was curious about how that was progressing. And my doctor had told me even prior to transfer that they would let us know by mail about the outcome of the second embryo. And I thought that was strange. Like, why would you mail? Yeah. Why would you mail a letter to? Why can't someone just call you and be like, right? It made it to the blastocyst, and we're gonna freeze it, or it didn't make it. So I thought that I didn't like that. So I said, well, I'm gonna be persistent, and I'm gonna call the hospital. So I did. I think it was probably on the Thursday, and then they had told me that the embryo arrested. And I was gutted. I was so hurt. I remember the restrictions, COVID restrictions had been lifted for the most part here. And I had called the hospital, and then one of my sister-in-laws came over, and I didn't tell anyone about IVF. Like aside from my close friend and my husband, it was a very private journey. And in our infertility community, I mean, I was opening up there to people I don't know, but people close to me, I didn't share anything. So my sister-in-law had called me. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I had just got off the call, and I felt like my heart was like in my stomach. And she's like, "We're just driving by." And she was with her son. She's like, "We want to come and bring you a coffee." I can't say no. That's like, in our culture, that's rude. So I said, I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, come by." And so she came. I think maybe that was a good thing that someone was there to distract me. Anyhow, so that was while I hadn't even got the negative result yet. And then just a couple of days later, I started cramping and spotting, and I called the fertility clinic, and I let them know that my back was hurting and that I had started spotting. I had taken a couple of early pregnancy tests, and they came back negative. And I asked whether or not I should continue with the progesterone. At that point, they said, if you've tested, then and you're basically spotting, then no, we don't recommend that you do that, and just come in for a beta tomorrow. So I went, and the beta, it was less than 1, so I wasn't pregnant, and that was that. It was the end of that cycle because the other embryo didn't make it. So then I was broken. I was quite sad about it. But then I wanted to have my follow-up appointment with my doctor immediately. And they were telling me I might have to wait 6 weeks to have a follow-up. But I said, no, why? Why so long? So they managed to squeeze me in. And then I said, I want to go on to round 2 right away. Let's go. And in the meantime, I was consulting with my naturopath. And she was just like, Rima, I don't recommend you move on to round 2. She's like, excuse me, I want to put you on some more supplements and try and improve your egg quality. And I was like, well, but both of my eggs were beautiful, they told me, and the embryos were beautiful. So I didn't feel like it was an issue with my egg or embryo quality.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he said, he's like, my doctor himself said, I don't recommend moving on to round 2. I think that we should consider doing surgery, laparoscopy, to see if I have endometriosis, which he did mention to me about 2 years ago now, that it's a possibility, not likely, but it's a possibility. And we can either do that or we can do IUIs. And I didn't want to do surgery. And when I met up with a follow-up, or I had a follow-up about 2 months later, the resident told me, no, I don't believe you have endometriosis. So I just kind of let it go.
Right.
Fast forward. So we were in September at this point. Because of COVID and backlogs and this and that in the healthcare system, my doctor couldn't get me in until December for surgery. And then we were scheduled to go December 2nd for surgery. And then there was another bump in the road that day. I had pneumonia at the time. And because of that, they obviously couldn't operate on me. So then I got extended again another 6 months. And I just had surgery just a month ago. So January 13, they diagnosed me with stage 3 endometriosis. And he removed it for the most part. He said, and it was on my bladder, over my rectum, on both of my ovaries. My left ovary had a lot of like lesions. So he said he really had to like dig away and get rid of the endometriosis. And his recommendation was that we try now for 3 to 4 cycles. And if not, we move on to round 2, which he said will take 4 to 6 months of preparation, because I have so much inflammation, and he's concerned that if we move on to round 2 without suppressing my ovaries for 4 to 6 months, that we'll have potentially similar outcomes to my last round. So that's where we are right now. It's natural, trying naturally and hoping for the best.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's a good thing your doctor then went ahead to do the surgery, isn't it? Because no one would have known, and you could have just proceeded and had no idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. In retrospect, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but I my husband and I were even talking about it yesterday, and it was like, oh, I wish I had listened to him 2 years ago when he just suggested it, but I think we always think, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. And, it's still early. We've only been married for 6 months. Like, no, let's give it some more time. Little do we know, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you don't have the obvious symptoms, right? So for you to actually even push for it.
Absolutely.
That's one of the problems of endometriosis. It's not easy to figure out. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I thought, I had always, since I was 12, 13, like I've always had painful periods. And I thought that was normal, right? Like I thought like my back hurting so much. For me, it's mostly my back. I get cramps, but my back is what really puts me over. I thought that was normal because I was dealing with that my entire, life.
Yeah. And that's what they tell you. Just use painkillers. Just use hot bottles. Just lie down. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah. I know you noted that you didn't tell any family member. You pretty much, told the trying to conceive community and your husband and your best friend. Since now you've had that one cycle. Do you know if any of your friends is dealing with it? Have you found support now? Now that you're very active on social media, has someone reached out to you that actually knows you? Or
so that's a great question. Although I'm still quite active on my trying to conceive account, I haven't. My personal account doesn't know anything about it, right? So I haven't, and so my account was anonymous for quite some time. My TTC account was anonymous until like December. And then there was the diversify your feeds movement. And I said, okay, you know what? Like, I agree with this movement because I don't see very many women of color in our community. Yes. All the, the major pages always are showcasing white women, and I don't see Black women, I don't see Asian women, I don't see Middle Eastern women, I don't see Indian women, I don't see diversity. So I said, you know what, it's time. And my husband's a very private person, so I had to work on him quite a bit, especially with something as fragile as our like infertility. So I did it, but I still had the fear that someone from my local community might find me.
Of course.
And so after I did it, and then someone from my local community who was an acquaintance of mine, and I thought, of all the billions of people in the world, billions, how did this person find me? And anyway, and I remember when I saw the message request, my heart dropped, and I was like, no, please. And then anyhow, she opened up to me, and it was incredible because her and I had been in an event together. And this is the first time I'd seen her since probably university days. So probably like 15 years. We were at a bridal shower together over the summer. And I think she had just, I can't remember if I think she had just had a miscarriage, and I was just about to start IVF. And we were both like struggling, but neither of us had any clue. So we opened up and we chatted about it, and we're still in contact. But I was scared. And then fast forward another month, and I was actually, one of my posts was larger pages. And I remember I had no idea. So I woke up the next day, and I found or follower requests and likes and messages, and what happened? And then I saw the page, and it tagged me in it. I was like, oh my gosh. And then that got even more local people. And I was like, oh no. So I actually went, I was so like that I made my account private. And then but that only lasted for about a minute. And then I was like, just like refocus. Why are you doing this? If they're reaching out, or if they're even just following your journey, be grateful in a sense, right? But I'd be lying if I said like it still makes me a little weary. But I find that I think with me being open on the infertility account, that I am more open with people in my non-infertility world.
Right.
Yeah.
And the feelings you're having is actually quite normal, especially in because I feel the same way. It's not because you're being, but firstly, I'm very secretive on a regular basis. Just that's just the way I am. I don't discuss things that are private. But of course, for infertility, I feel like we need to discuss it more. So there's always that struggle between I'm not usually open about things like this, but then I want to be open about it because I know we need to be open about it. So it's constantly trying to find balance. Yeah,
absolutely.
So
I like that. It is finding balance. You're absolutely correct, because it's not something that we should be ashamed to talk about. And you're right. I am a private person too, and I don't like to. I'm the type of person, like, unless I kind of bring it up, I don't really like to talk about things, right? And I don't know. I think that as a result of me opening up my profile and coming out as a visible minority, I had so many people that I don't know message me privately, like direct message me and saying, wow, like, thank you for coming out. I have been waiting for this. And not even non-Muslims, right? Other people of color and other people that belong to other religions and that aren't religious, and just like, thank you for doing so. And I said, that's why I did this. That's why I'm going to continue to do this. And I'm just going to let my fears, just put them to the side for now.
Yeah. And it is very brave of you, as a Muslim woman, coming out and, showing your face and publicly discussing this. Because I know that it's not.
It is not. It is not something that is done. And like I told you, my husband's very private, and his family's even more private. And my family's private. So for me to kind of be the face of infertility, right? It was not an easy pill to swallow. And I even said to my husband, I said, I once COVID, settles down and we can start having stuff at the mosque again, I want to start like a support group, or like, I feel like that's
amazing.
Thank you. Like, I really feel like I have a duty to give back. Yeah, I haven't had a child, but I still want to be able to support women that are having the same challenges as me, and let them know that it's not like, you don't have to suffer in silence.
Exactly.
And that there are, in Canada, infertility affects 1 in 6 couples that are trying. 1 in 6. I know America always hear 1 in 8, but in Canada it's 1 in 6. So I know from my group of friends, out of, let's say, like my close 6 friends, I know 3 of them that went through the same struggles as me.
Wow.
So it affects so many people, and it just needs to be spoken about, and the stigma needs to be broken, and people need to be more open to hearing people's challenges and struggles. It's not something to be ashamed of. And I tell my husband that. He's like, I said, I'm not embarrassed. This is not something embarrassing to me. We're doing what we can.
Exactly.
We're looking for help. And this is out of our control. And I said, I'm not embarrassed. I'm proud of us for everything that we're doing. We just we're going to be the trailblazers in our community to get people to stop from thinking like, oh, they're sharing too much information, or they're talking like this is their private their lives. Why are they telling others about it? I disagree with it. So I'm doing what
because even here in Nigeria, it's the same. It's like, oh, keep your private business at home. No one needs to know. But
you know what? On the same token, person that my husband and I have known each other disagreements. Obviously, we have our moments that we're not happy with each other, right? And then we'll fight. And I don't ever tell my mom. I don't tell my friends. I don't tell my cousins. I don't tell anyone that's close to me about his and our arguments, right? Because I don't feel like that's going to benefit me or them in any. That's something that's private. That's our business, and we'll figure it out ourselves. I don't need to hear people's opinions about our marital relationship, right? But fertility, no, that's different. Infertility is different. That's not something that should be where you should suffer alone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you coming out publicly as well. There's so many women and men as well that are probably following your accounts, or rather following, but not actually following, right? So keeping up with what you're writing and agreeing with it and being encouraged by it, but can't actually follow it because they don't want to be they don't want people to see that. So
the girl that I was referencing, she doesn't follow me. The one that reached out to me back, she doesn't follow me now. And then, but she'll come every now and then and or leave me.
Exactly.
And because she probably doesn't want an IVF account to show up on her follower list.
Yes, exactly. Right?
Yeah. No, I've had a few. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And it's sad because there's a stigma, and hopefully I will help break that stigma in our community. But
definitely,
one person
at a time. Yes, you're making that change, and I'm so glad. And I do hope COVID ends and then you can start that support group in the mosque. It would be so amazing.
Thank you.
Make that happen. Of course, you're Muslim Canadian, and of course you have your own specific culture, and then there's a Canadian culture. In your experience or in your opinion, what differences do you think exist between infertility in the Canadian quote unquote community and then versus your community? Your parents from Lebanon?
Yeah. They're both from Lebanon. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. Even speaking to my family, my mom's family is still in Lebanon, most of them. It's, again, infertility is not something that's talked about. I mean, it's not anything really. I had said this during a live one recently that I had with Crystal, that anything that is considered sacred or private between spouses is not. It's no one else's business, right? And that infertility is something huge that I guess you just don't talk about, right? And even our movies, anything to do with love or intimacy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's never. My mom watches her Lebanese soap operas, and sometimes but when I lived at home, I would just kind of watch with her, and there was never any intimacy, kissing, never. Maybe a hug or a kiss on the forehead or on the hands, but on the lips, away. Like that's just so inappropriate. So because of that mentality, like you never like there's never any like, you know, sex or anything. So to deal with something to talk about something that deals with that intimate relationship between a husband and wife, it's just not talked about. Whereas in the Canadian culture, I think that we are encouraged to talk about our struggles, right? The other thing with infertility in the Middle Eastern community, there's some people that like IVF is allowed, it's condoned. It's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's the same way if you have any other kind of disease, there are treatments for it. And, you know, in Islam, it's, you know, God has given treatments. You go get your treatments, right? Same thing goes with infertility. But the idea of, you know, surrogacy, for example, right? That's something that's really like never talked about in the community because whether it be a religious belief or just a cultural belief, but to have someone else potentially carry your child or to have an egg that belongs to another woman and the sperm of a man, like that's like very unheard of. You know what I mean? So because of those options in the infertility world, I think it is something that's just not spoken about, but a lot of women do. I know that women from Canada East to do IVF, and it is something like they'll say. I've had family in Lebanon say, you know, you should come here and consider doing treatments here. And again, I've never spoken to them. I haven't opened up to them about us having our issues, but because of my age, because I've been married for 2.5 years, in our culture, it's like, okay, like they're obviously having problems. So, but in Lebanon, at least in the past, they used to put multiple embryos during an IVF transfer. They'd put like 4, 5, 6 embryos and then have twins, right? So it is something that happens, right? And that we know about, but it's not something that's really talked about.
Yeah, same here. You know, we have a lot of fertility clinics, so yet no one talks about it. So I'm like, well, someone must be using it, right? Because it's there, you know? So it's interesting. Now, just going back to actually, you've been Muslim. I just wonder what role your faith has played in this whole journey.
That's a good question. You know, a strong belief in Islam is that, you know, God, basically when you're born, your destiny has already been determined. Do we have free will and we're able to determine or decide for ourselves, am I going to wear a blue hijab today or a white hijab? Obviously, right? But, you know, there's the belief that whatever happens in your life has already been determined for you. So I guess my husband and I were meant to meet at 18 and get married at 36. And, you know, sometimes, or 34, 33. But, you know, and sometimes I sit back and I reflect and I'm like, why didn't, like, you know, if we've known each other for such a long time, why didn't we get married any sooner? And I think that, you know, I always look at it and I say, you know, I don't think we would have worked out had we gotten married earlier. I think we both matured, and by the time we got engaged and got married, we were at a maturity, at the appropriate level of maturity. We had known each other so well at that point that was the perfect time for us to get married. And when I have that realization, I say, you know, that was God planned it that way, you know, or even like my surgery that was canceled back in December. As much as I wanted that surgery to happen, and I tried to hide my pneumonia, I'm not impaired. I'm not proud to admit that. I had already finished antibiotics, and I felt better. It's just I had a cough still, and I tried to hide it from the hospital. I didn't want them to know. I really, really wanted that surgery. I really wanted answers as to why we weren't conceiving. And then I got canceled because I happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, like 2 weeks earlier, which had just had an COVID outbreak. And then one of the screenings at the hospital was like, were you at like this hospital recently, like the other hospital? And I went because of the pneumonia. And so I didn't, and they failed my screening because of that. And I was so upset and I was so hurt and I was so mad. And I said, why? You know, not to them, but even to God. And I was like, why? Like, you knew I wanted this so badly. And And then after all, I just was crying and angry. And a couple of days later, and I was still having the worst coughing attacks. Like I would vomit. That's how much I was coughing. And
wow.
it was bad. And I said, it was canceled. Like he had it. I was literally in the hospital bed. Like I was in my gown. I was already connected to the IV, like everything. Like I was ready. They were ready to take me into the operation. And it just like, there was like divine intervention came in, and it just like, it was canceled. Like God's like, no, it's not happening. I'm canceling this for you. And when I thought about it, a week later, I said, oh my God, like it makes sense. I was very sick still. I can't even imagine, even after I had my surgery, like my stomach was very sore. Having such a sore stomach with the incisions and having the cough that I had would have been torture. So to go back to your question in terms of faith, I said to myself, God did that for a reason, right? Or we got married at this age for a reason. Do I ask myself, Muhammad is my husband. We were talking about it last night. Like, this is happening for a reason. We don't know the reason why we're not having a kid, why we haven't conceived. I've never been pregnant in 2.5 years, why we haven't had anything really. And he's like, there is a bigger picture. We don't know it yet. But hopefully one day we will understand it. And I have to, I guess, just remain patient and trust in the plan and trust in God's plan. And that really is what that helps me get through. I say it's easy, but it does help to have that faith.
That's wonderful. And, it's great. I mean, it's amazing that you and your husband are also talking about it and just trying to figure out, why this is happening and what the meaning of it, on what the plan is for you as a couple. I wonder if this whole journey and the delays in conceiving, has it had any impact on your relationship with your husband?
Honestly, Ola, I feel like it's strengthened our relationship. Sometimes, like, even when we're talking about it, him and I, we're pretty like, we're stubborn in our ways, right? And we can, and sometimes I think like, oh, well, maybe if we had a child, like right at the beginning of our marriage, it would have been like, we would have probably butt heads a lot about certain things, right? So we've had more time to talk about like what our expectations are as parents and what we would envision for our future children. So I think we've learned more about each other in that sense. But for me, like, he has been like, I've had some dark days throughout this journey. And he has been my pillar and my rock and my everything. Like, and he got me through darkest times. He's very sweet and gentle and caring and generous. And at the first sign that I'm going to have some sort of breakdown, he'll do what he can to make me laugh, or he'll go, sneak out of the house and come back with flowers, or, it's just, he's such a compassionate person. And I remember the day I went in for a monitoring scan for, during STIMS, it was like my second monitoring scan. And I only had 5 follicles at the time, or 5 eggs, 5 follicles. And I got out of the appointment and I started crying so much, because I thought that, the first appointment, there was like, I don't know, 5 or so. And I thought, that's okay, it's still early, like more follicles are going to come. I didn't realize that the majority of your follicles are there. Yeah. And then Instagram and seeing these women get 30.
Yeah. 30 something, oh my.
And then I remember seeing people like, okay, well, you get 30 eggs, but then you have 15 embryos, and then like 15 embryos make it to like 4 blastocysts. Oh my God, I have 5. So I got out of that appointment. I cried and cried and cried and cried. And he was at work, and I called him and I just broke down. And then I went to my aunt's house shortly after, because one of my other aunts was going back to Lebanon. So I went to go say goodbye to her. And I had to keep a straight face there, got into the car, started sobbing again. And I got home, and then he finished work, and then he came home, and then he's like, okay, I'm not coming inside. I'm like, why not? And he's like, you need to come, please come meet me outside. So I got into the car, and then we go for a drive. I'm like, where are we going? Meanwhile, crying. And he's like, where? And then he took me to one of my favorite dessert places, right? And he's like, I'm gonna, and it's just his demeanor. So he's been very good about it. I know that I've heard horror stories about women even like in our community, right, that weren't able or were having challenges conceiving, and the man either left them to marry someone else, or, you know, I mean, it just
There's
caused
so much fighting, you know, the families are just like, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so blessed. Like, my in-laws are amazing, and my family too. Like, no one ever puts pressure on us. No one ever asks us. So it's been good in that
It makes
regard.
it so much better, doesn't it? Like, because you don't need the additional stress. It's already stressful, you know.
Yeah.
It's making it worse.
Yeah.
You were part of the ladies that did the amplifying, you know, voices of the, what's the right word? I don't know, people of color or minority, or, you know, people on Instagram. I just wonder, how do we change that? Because, you know, like you highlighted at the beginning, we don't see a lot of people that look like us on Instagram. And, you know, even in the media, when you're talking about fertility treatments, we don't see either. What do you think we can all do in our little spaces to make that change?
I think, honestly, part of the problem is our local, like, communities, because we feel that because women are so scared to come out, right, and to talk about their stories because of everything that we talked about just stigma and embarrassment or shame, and which shouldn't be the case, but a lot of women don't talk about it, making people feel more comfortable to come out and talk about their infertility. The second challenge is our greater trying to conceive community and infertility community, and who they choose to highlight, right? And because they're always highlighting Anglo-Saxon white women, right? Blonde hair and blue eyes, it further silences us, the visual minorities. And it makes us feel like, oh, my story is not important. No one cares about my story. And if I come out, even with me, I was anonymous at first, and I didn't identify as a Muslim. I was terrified to put my picture out because of, my local community, but I was more scared of my TTC friends and TTC community, because I was like, oh my God, they're going to see that I'm a Muslim, and that like they don't like Muslims, or they don't like, they don't, and that scared me a lot too. So I think that our TTC community needs to do a much better job at highlighting our stories. There have been accounts that, it's frustrating me, but they have these giveaways and they always have the same one to follow. And, there was, I won't name it, but there was one very recently, and it had like 15 people in the picture, not one Black woman. And we have a group, the BIPOC ladies, we had started, like, they're going to amplify ways to kind of get out in the community. And we talk about some of these challenges. And one of the girls in the group sent a screenshot of this picture and was like, and I said, are you kidding me? Because there isn't one Black woman in the community that hasn't shared her story. She can't be a part of this. There hasn't been one Asian. There hasn't been one Arab. There hasn't, and it's just like, come on. Why are you silencing us? And they removed the ability to even comment under the post.
Or maybe because some people already said things about it. Maybe
that's exactly it. Because we did comment under a post from the same account that was done probably about a month earlier. There was no diverse faces, and we did comment under it. So this time they knew what they were doing, and they blocked the comments. So I don't know. Whether sometimes I really feel that people sometimes I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and that they don't realize what they're doing, and it's our job to open their eyes and educate them. And there are women, like I said, that have influence in the community and that have shown a lot of support, which is great. But I think there's still much more work to do. And there's something people always say, infertility does not discriminate.
It doesn't. Everyone is, which is what we need to see, right? Because sometimes I think when you see just certain features and certain looks and, and trying to conceive community on Instagram and everywhere else, you start to think, well, there's no one like me that this is happening to, which is not reality, right? There is a lot of people like you and I that it is happening to. You just not seeing them.
Yeah, and I had a woman, reach out to me recently saying, I was laying in bed and just last night, and thinking like, and she had like an anonymous account, or not even a TTC account. She was using her personal account, and she's like, oh, I didn't see any Muslims, or I didn't see any Arabs, and then she was like, I was wondering why, and then she's like, the next day I saw you on there.
Wow.
Like, oh my God, and just like so happy that I shared her story. And she's like, I found someone that looks like me, and there, like I told you before, there have been a lot of women that have reached out. So it goes like. And that was mostly, I'd say, because that one larger page had featured me in one of their posts. Right. So because of that, like I got like 700 followers like in a day.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? And they weren't, the majority of them were not TTC accounts. The majority of the followers were non-TTC accounts, just regular personal accounts. And I was like, wow, how many people are going through infertility alone and for people to follow along or to hear about their stories, you know?
Yeah. So you keep thinking that this changes, and, you know, more of what you're doing with the you know, people trying to amplify different voices, and we all speaking out, and hopefully things can change for the better. Because again, there's a lot of diversity required. I mean, people need to feel represented. They need to see people that like them.
Absolutely.
And just connect better that way.
Most definitely.
Wonderful. And if there's anyone out listening right now that wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach you, Rima?
It's, if they already follow me, shoot me a DM. I answer every single direct message that I get. So I'd love for them to do that. And if they don't want to follow a trying to conceive account, that I completely understand. And still, please just send me a direct message, and excuse me, and I'm there for them, you know. And I really do try. Everyone that does send me a message and kind of opens up to me, isn't either if they are a part of the community or not, the online community, I always say to them, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I am here for you. Please, whenever you need me, I'm here, you know. And I try to support everyone that I can, because the support that I got was so helpful, and if I can give back, then I would. You know?
Yes, wonderful. And Rima, we spoke about this earlier. Is there one quote or a word of affirmation that you found very helpful in your journey so far that you'd like to share? Yeah.
So, I mean, my Instagram handle is patienceIsAvirtue.com or .com. Oh my gosh. What am I saying? Is Patience is a Virtue IVF. And I'm a high school teacher, so I have to be very patient. I'm dealing with adolescent boys and girls every day, and, you know, homework excuses and this and that, and you just have to be patient.
Yeah.
And I just think as a human being, I'm a very patient person. And so that's why I chose that handle. But even before I made my infertility account, during Ramadan, so my sister-in-law has this, like a business where she like personalizes like serving trays and water bottles and like clothing. Like she uses a machine and makes, you know, personalized mugs and stuff. And she had come up with like a tray, like a serving platter, and she was doing quotes on it. And she asked me, she's like, would you be interested in one? I'm like, yes, I would. And then she's like, what quote would you like on it? I'm like, that's a great question. So I started looking up quotes about patience. And I came across, so in Islam, the holy book is the Quran. And I found a verse from the Quran, and I just have it here in front of me so I can quote it properly. And it says, so endure, right? So endure patiently with a beautiful patience. And that's from verse 70. Or I guess, I don't know how to translate that into English, but surah, which is, I guess, chapter 70, verse 5, right? So endure patiently with a beautiful patience, right? So it's like, you're being challenged, but, you know, be patient and do it with like a beautiful patience, right? Just be, essentially, I just see it like, okay, you're going to be rewarded. Try to remain positive, try to remain optimistic, don't be angry, and just try and be as patient as possible. Yeah. So I love that. And she actually put it in Arabic for me and put it on my serving tray. And so I have it in the house. So I did that because I was going through infertility at the time. It was right before IVF. And I said, I'm going to show this. I'm going to put this like in our house so that, you know, people who read Arabic, when they come in, they'll be able to see like, we had to be patient, but our patience paid off in the end. Right.
Yes.
So
Amen.
that really, and that's, I guess, I didn't even think of that quote when I made my patience as a virtue. I think it's just so
Yeah.
important that, yeah.
I love it.
That quote.
Yeah. I think for me, when I heard that, it makes me feel like, well, you know, yes, you're being patient, but also do it without, you know, because sometimes, you know, with infertility, you just feel like, oh, you're so stressed out, you're currently worrying, and just when is this going to happen? When is it going to happen? And when I heard that verse, it's almost saying to me, well, yes, be patient, but do it, but also live a good life, you know, enjoy your life while you're waiting for it, right? And not do it in sadness or.
Yes, I like that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And if you could go back in time, Rima, to 15-year-old Rima, knowing all you know now, what would you tell her?
Oh man, that's a hard question. I think, I mean, in terms of, you know, even when I got married, right, in our community, I was 33, almost 34. That's old in the Middle East community. And like, not in my opinion, but in the general opinion. 15-year-old Rima, I would say, Rima, everything is going to, don't worry, don't stress out. You are going to have your happily ever after with your beautiful husband, and you're going to have a loving marriage, and you don't need to stress out, and don't worry about what people are saying because you're not married or you're not this or you're not that. That's what I would say.
That's lovely. And it's so applicable to everything, right? Like, don't worry, everything will work out fine. Just.
Yeah. And I think, and I have to keep reminding myself that with my journey now.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't, I mean, even if our journey doesn't give us a child, I still have so many blessings. I have so many things to be thankful for. And if it's just my husband and I, you know, and if we don't go any other route in terms of fertility, and we decide just it's him and I, we will take advantage of what we have in life, and we will live life to its fullest, and everything is going to work out the way it's meant to work out.
Yes. Love it. Thank you for sharing. And as a wrap-up, Rima, do you have any words of encouragement for any other woman or couple listening right now?
I mean, words of encouragement, words of advice. I really think that they should reach out. They should share with whoever they're comfortable with, and just do what is best for them. If being quiet and is what's best for them, then keep doing that. But there's such a beauty I find in sharing our stories and connecting with other women and seeing stories of hope.
Yeah.
You know, like I've seen so many pregnancy, and I get so happy when I see women in the community who have a pregnancy announcement, because it gives us hope. And I think that's so important. So I think that couples that are undergoing treatment, if they're comfortable, share your story or look for other stories of support, and remain patient.
Yes, patience is very important in this journey and in, you know, in the very aspects of life. Yes, it is.
Not easy. Like, you know, I'm saying it and it's not easy. My days, I'm telling you, I have my days where I'm not patient. But at the end of the day, it's just, that's all we can do.
Exactly.
You know, we do everything that's in our control, and we leave the rest to God, right?
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Rima. That was really beautiful. It's been amazing having you on the show today. You have shared so much wisdom. I love all that you're doing. I love you, you know, coming out publicly and speaking out, because we need to see more people that look like us. We need to let people know they're not alone, regardless of whatever culture or religion they are. People need to feel supported and see stories of hope that encourage them. So thank you so much for all you're doing, and thank you for sharing today.
Thank you for having me and giving me that platform. It's so important. You're doing amazing things. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've really been inspired. I know all the listeners have been inspired, and we hope that we can see you again in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Fertility Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Fertility Conversations. If there are any topics you would like to have discussed, please send an email to fertilityconversations@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. Thank you again for listening. Take care of yourself and do stay hopeful.